Go.
Sure. Hi, I'm Art Eisen. If you didn't see my run yesterday with Nylon, and this is Holocure. It is a Vampire Survivors esque game with VTubers as the characters. Now, uh, I don't know a damn thing about VTuber lore, so don't ask me questions about it. I won't be able to answer them. But I ran a poll to determine which character I would do the run with, and Fauna and Kiara tied. And since Fauna is graduating, I chose to do the run with her. And the screen you can see right here is the customization screen. You can basically choose what items are going to show up during a run because it's a roguelike and those are randomly determined. We didn't used to have this. This just came out in the November update 0.7. You can actually start the video whenever.
All right, let's do it.
So I'm going to be doing Stage 4 hard survival. This is an anti-speed run. I'm actually trying to live as long as possible. If you saw the title, you already know how long I live, but I'm not going to say it again in case you didn't. But the estimate is mostly because this game slows down a lot when there's a lot of stuff on the screen. So when you go into a stage, there's a couple different things you can choose. You can choose food, or you can choose like an ability. I choose the dash because it makes you invincible for like a second and a half, 2 seconds. And I use food that prevents me from, or sorry, it gives me like 20% bonus to a couple of different stats. So I've already leveled up a couple of times. I've picked up an item that regenerates my health after I get hit, and the study glasses, which are really important. That's an EXP boost. So if you've never played a Vampire Survivors-esque game before, how those generally work is you are accosted by hordes of enemies, and as you defeat them, they drop EXP crystals. You pick up the EXP crystals, you gain levels, which give you items. Those can be weapons or like passive items, and those affect the build that you work towards. And by the end of the game, generally, you become your own bullet hell, basically. So what I'm using here is actually not an optimal build. I deliberately avoided using an optimal build because I just like building into what each character is capable of doing. Fauna's kit is centered around self-healing, which is really powerful early on because Stage 4 hard is kind of tough and you're going to take a lot of chip damage early on, even if you have max speed a lot of the time. So every time she heals, she will create like a big root that comes out of the ground and stabs enemies. And those little saplings on the ground that you can see that occasionally get pulled towards her, those also heal her, which triggers those roots. So that adds onto her relative. Without those, her offense without extra weapons is very lacking. Now, if you can see the purple aura around her right now, that's spider cooking. That's probably the best early game weapon in the entire game. What it does is, well, the reason it's the best is because it's just always up, and it kills pretty much everything very quickly. So generally you want to rush to get that to level 7 regardless of what kind of build you're doing, assuming spider cooking's in it, but I can't imagine building without it. It's just so good. This giant tree is her ultimate. Every character has one. They charge every so often. That's kind of a difference from Vampire Survivors that doesn't have those really. In this game, every character has like multiple unique skills and a unique weapon and then a unique ultimate. Her tree heals her a lot and makes her invincible as long as she's in its radius. So you can see right here, I've picked up Lava Bucket as well, which is similar to Holy Water in Vampire Survivors. It just throws like little pools of lava around, and once you get 2 weapons to max level in Holocure, you can combine them. So what that does is it basically makes a new weapon based on the effects of those 2 weapons, and I'll talk more about that once I have my first one. The other items that I have are those orange Kamina glasses, like Kamina from Gurren Lagann. Those give me a massive bonus to crit damage dealt over time. Then the credit card makes anvils show up. Anvils are like a free level you can spend on weapon or item upgrades. And then that little like sheep bear thing just makes food items drop more often, and I need it for a combination later. Roughly every 2 minutes or so, a mini boss will spawn, except at 10 minutes and 20 minutes, where you get a mid boss and a stage boss. The mini bosses are generally just giant enemies They deal more damage, they have a lot of health, but they drop a box usually when you kill them that you can use to get a free item upgrade. Or a giant EXP crystal like that red one I picked up. It gave me like an instant level. There's a couple of other components to building characters in this, but I guess I'll touch on those when I pick one up. That would be stamps, which only apply to your main weapon, but I want specific ones. If you can see the green arrows pointing to like that chicken icon and a couple of others, those are stamps. They affix to your main weapon and they give you different effects. But pretty much every build wants certain specific ones. So one of the things that makes this stage the hardest stage in the game is the pretty much constant hazards. There's little penguins carrying bombs that will run after you that detonate and take off like a third of your health. The lightning strikes are also extremely damaging and have to be dodged on reaction because they track you. And the boss of this stage shoots a frankly obscene amount of bullets. It's pretty rough to dodge them to the point that you may be better off just building health and not bothering. But a lot of this is preparation for the post 30 minutes gameplay. So, Vampire Survivors, if you've played it, generally either just kills you at 30 minutes automatically, whether it's via the red death or the white death if you beat the red death, or it just lasts literally forever. Holocure works a little bit differently. Holocure gives you a mid-boss at 10, a boss at 20, and then at 30, it gives you a sort of kill screen, but that you can survive if you are good enough at the game. And this goes until it becomes untenable to survive from like a numerical standpoint. Eventually, the enemies get too fast for you to avoid, or deal too much damage for you to survive a hit. And they get bigger and bigger hitboxes, I believe, as well. I don't know if the hitboxes continue to scale, but they jump up at 40 minutes. So this is my first collab. This is basically an upgraded weapon. It's called Elite Cooking. It's an upgrade of Spider Cooking and Lava Bucket. And that basically does, by and large, the same thing, but over a larger area and with more damage, since the weapons were already pretty similar to begin with. So the enchantment system is, it allows me to append auxiliary effects to weapons. Generally, what you want to see is size and damage. Really just size is the most important, but I'll take damage if I get it. Crit damage is the worst one, even with the Focus Shades item that I have, the orange glasses. So I don't generally bother with that too much. Oh, I should probably clarify something. The reason this is pre-recorded is because it's a roguelike. So most runs attempting to get high time on this end in the first 2 minutes. I don't think I had to reset too many times to get this run. I think it was probably like 9 or 10 resets, but that's still kind of a hassle, as you might imagine, in a marathon context. And, you know, I just wanted to avoid that and save glitch time and my time and everyone else's time, because I don't think anyone wants to watch me reset for 15 minutes. I'm trying to think of other things to say. What else can I explain? So those orange damage numbers that are showing up are crits. I believe that they are 1.5 times damage. I don't actually remember, because I don't build crit with this character. I know what they are when they're purple, because that's 4x. And I'm pretty sure red is 3x. I'm not sure if orange is 2x or 1.5x. Because I just consider them a nice bonus and don't really build into them on characters that don't have crit-focused kit in their skills. We're about to have another mini-boss in a second. Let's see. I think this one starts actually shooting at you, which is when they start to be threatening as opposed to big punching bags full of health. Yeah, so this one doesn't shoot too much. but the bullet patterns are going to become a lot denser as the game progresses. I say patterns. A lot of them aren't really patterns. They're just bullet vomit all over the screen. But thankfully, the tree makes me invincible, so I can just sit here and put all my weapons over the mid-boss, or the mini-boss, and deal a bunch of damage, kill it quickly, so that it stops being a threat. So that that item on the end there, on the bottom row, the other pair of what looks to be orange glasses or goggles, the blacksmith's tools, has a really beneficial effect when combined with a credit card. So the credit card, when fully upgraded, makes anvils show up twice as often. The blacksmith tools makes anvils usable twice. So it's basically 4x anvils, which means you can get a lot of levels from anvil drops as opposed to your actual levels, meaning you can start upgrading your stats earlier. That actually is optimal on basically every character in the game. I can't think of a scenario where you wouldn't want to do that unless it's just stage mode, at which point it doesn't really matter to upgrade your stats because you won't get to anything that challenges them by the end of that 20 minutes. So this, at 7 minutes, this enemy here is unique to this stage. It basically asks you math questions and makes you solve math problems with the order of operations not applying. It's actually really annoying. I wish they I wish they followed the order of operations, but they do not. Which makes it a bit tough to do these while you're trying. And if you pause to check, it actually switches the question. So you can't cheese it. You have to actually solve it while you're running around, and I am not very good at that. So, but it doesn't punish you too hard. It just shoots at you, and you can dodge the shot. So it's whatever. I don't know if you get a bonus for getting all 3 of them because I've never done it. And I hope they do not include more speed mental math puzzles in future stages in this game, because it's not my favorite mechanic for sure. So this game has currently, I believe, 9 stages. 4 hard stages and 5 normal stages. The hard stages are just literally the same stage, but at night, generally. They just dramatically increase enemy spawns, speed, things like that. I don't actually know if they have a damage multiplier. I think the damage multiplier is only based on time, but the hazards in this stage do extremely high damage, so maybe. I'm not sure how all that's calculated. I haven't looked into that yet. I'm trying to think of, Stage 5 has actually really, really scary hazards. It's got cannonballs that shoot based on your position. Like, there's pirate ships off the side of the screen, and whenever you walk past them, it shoots a giant cannonball that does, like, 45 damage or something, which is enough to one-shot one of the characters at base stats. Naturally, when you're going for, like, long survival runs, you have every upgrade in the shop already, because not doing that would just be silly. Like, you're going to beat your times for free once you have all the upgrades. Those come in the form of, like, more damage, more movement speed, getting more EXP per pickup. I think that maxes around 20%, I don't remember, maybe 25. There's a lot of different stuff that the shop gives you as benefits. There's a couple of other new mechanics that I don't use, really, because I don't feel they're beneficial at this level of play. There's one that was released in the most recent patch called Prisms. You can equip them to absorb damage. They absorb a flat amount of damage and then they break. And the problem with them is, by the time I get to the actually hard part, I most likely will have already taken enough damage to break them as chip damage just over the course of the stage. And the things that are actually dangerous do like 100 plus damage a hit late in the run. So I don't feel it's particularly beneficial. Unless you play, like, flawlessly up to that point, which isn't a realistic expectation on Stage 4 hard, I feel. Especially with the enemies that fire lots of bullets later. We're coming up on the mid-boss here, which is actually 4 mid-bosses. So the regular stage 4 has a mid-boss and then 3 bosses at once. How the hard stages work is that they just throw the mid-boss or the original mid-boss and boss at you as the new mid-boss, which means that we have to fight 4 enemies at once. And they're all fairly durable. It's not like a tremendous issue, because Fauna has really, really good self-healing. Like I said, that's kind of her gimmick. That's how her kit works. She's just constantly picking up items that heal her, and every time she heals, she damages enemies. But, it's fairly dense. That giant bear is one of them, and then that UFO that shoots the, like, spread waves. The giant, squirrel outfit thing, and then the potato Muna. I'm sure those are references to significant pieces of VTuber lore, because almost everything in this game is, but heck if I know what they are. So I did mention at the beginning of the run that I wasn't using an optimal build deliberately. So an optimal build is pretty much the same for every character, unfortunately. It's there's a weapon you get by combining the potato weapon with the lava bucket. It's called Mikorone, and it is probably the best DPS weapon in the game. It sets enemies on fire. I don't know if it's percentage damage, but it's really, really high damage. So every character probably wants to build that, and I believe Eldritch Horror, which is a big AoE of spider cooking and Ien's curse, Absolute Wall, and then a super collab called Holy Fire, and that combination and Whammy Water unfused. That is probably the best overall combination of weapons in the game. You can get times better than what I got here with that combination, but I do find it a little bit boring to build the exact same way on every single character. This game has like 47, 48 characters now, I think. They just added Gen 3 and Gen 4, I want to say. I don't know them all by heart, so it's hard for me to say exactly. Imagine me saying something really interesting for the next 30 to 40 seconds. I'll be right back.
My boy Art's got to go scoop up the food delivery, so just a quick little intermission here while he's gaming. In the past. Also, while I'm here, I'm gonna yap a little bit. I fucking hate OBS. I wish it worked. That's all.
Don't you just hate it when you get DoorDash and then they leave the bag with the food right in front of your door?
Oh
so you
my
hit
god!
It with your door when you open it.
Yes.
And then it gets knocked over and spills everything everywhere.
Happens every time.
Where the dude's at? No, I don't. I don't use the trumpet stamp because it doesn't do anything. If that's what that's referring to. Let's see. So, I didn't actually talk about the stamps that I am using. So I use the haste stamp so that my weapon acts more quickly. I use the knockback stamp to push enemies away, and currently I'm using a speed up stamp. I believe at some point I swap it for the pacifist stamp because it inflicts stun, which is really, really good. Apparently, not having Whammy Water is really bad, and I basically threw it away on Frozen Sea. And I think the my super collab happened in the 30 seconds I wasn't looking at my screen because I had to go grab my food. So Jingisukan gives you 100 extra health and heals you every second. It actually got nerfed in this patch, and I think it's still relatively broken outside of like the toppest of top levels of play. Mainly because it hits the entire screen, essentially, and lasts a really long time and heals you. And that plus the 100 extra health is pretty massive. On Fauna in particular, it's nice because every time she heals, she hits something with the roots from her special skill. So that's kind of a nice little bonus. So the chicken feather item that I got is also pretty great. It's basically just extra lives. It destroys enemies on the screen, gives you their experience, I believe, and then you basically just get full. I think you get like half your health back. That there up at the top of the level up screen, the crit up, that's a stat up. Once you max out all your weapons, or mostly max them out, basically once the pool of available items and weapons is exhausted enough that it can't give you a full gamut of options from them, since you always have to have 4 level up options, it will start giving you stat boosts instead. And these are key to surviving past 30 minutes. Now, a fully optimized run would probably start getting those earlier, like maybe 8 minutes, or even earlier than that on some stages. On stage 1, you probably would, because you would run Hollow, which dramatically increases fan spawns, fans being enemies, and makes them stronger and such, since you can outscale them much more easily. They don't have a multiplier on their health and speed like they do here, so it's more manageable. It may actually be possible to run Hollow successfully here. I don't go for it because it's really, really hard on stage 4. I already take enough damage as it is, and the post-30 enemies become almost untenable to fight with Hollow. I don't know what the multiplier is. I think it's more than double, though, off the top of my head. There are, there's a couple of other options that are beneficial. Nightly Milk is really good. That gives you knockback and pickup range, which functionally is more experience. And knockback is really, really good post-30. If I were to do this again, I probably would swap out the focus classes for it, since I don't really feel like my damage was an issue in late game. So you can see there on the left, whenever I'm leveling something up, what my stat bonuses are at this point. Now, a lot of those I brought into the run because they're shop upgrades, and some of them are from fan letters, a very small percent. Once you get all the fan letters, I think it amounts to maybe like 4% in every stat. It's pretty negligible. But that's why some of them seem weird, like a 222 or 129%, as opposed to like rounder numbers, since most of the bonuses are in 5s or 10s. But we're going to try and pump to like 600% speed, generally. I have an upgrade strategy here, where generally I only upgrade the one weapon. That seems to be more beneficial in my experience, to only upgrade one weapon past its cap. So that, like, up to plus 20, 30-ish is what you generally want. The problem, or the downside, rather, is that your chance of success decreases every single time until you're at plus 10, and then it stays at 26% forever, which is not the greatest. But considering that Jingisu Khan covers by far the most area of any of my weapons, and probably does the most damage as well, it makes sense to upgrade that one over everything else. So I finally got the Pacifist stamp drop, and I pick it up in order to inflict stun on enemies, and then I spend other stamps to upgrade it, which is how that usually works. So the haste stamp and the pacifist and knockback stamps synergize to an extent, since the more your weapon fires, the more it can hit things and thus knock them back more often and stun them more often. So haste is a pretty good stamp to mix with just about any other stamp. So the alt comes back, I don't know, it differs per character. I think Fauna's is like 80 seconds or something. I can actually look it up right now, the benefits of pre-recorded runs. It is every 90 seconds. That makes sense. It's pretty strong. I think 80 seconds is the most common one off the top of my head. So one other thing that would be nice to get, it's not exceptionally likely, there's these things called super items. Like the items in the bottom row of my equipment there are super versions of some of them. There's a super credit card, there's a super chicken feather, and there's a super study glasses. And they changed how super items work in 0.7 such that you can get a super item of an item you already have. You can only get them from the holo boxes that you get after killing a mini-boss. And the bonuses are massive in many cases, like Chicken Feather, instead of 3 lives, gives you 5, and also gives you like a 20 to 50% stat buff or something every time you die, which is pretty ridiculous. My best Ollie run actually has... No, my second best Ollie run has a Super Chicken Feather in it, which was pretty hilarious. I later found out that I could just build her better, and I managed to get further without one, but it's pretty substantial. Basically, if you manage to keep them until 40 minutes, revives buy you like 20 to 30 seconds of time, survival time each. I'm trying to think of other things to say. Oh, okay. So Absolute Wall is kind of a cool collab. It negates, I believe, 15% of bullets that are fired at you. So anytime any bullet touches it, it just has a 15% chance of being destroyed. I believe this ability has some kind of lockout to it. I don't remember exactly. But the main reason that I use it and that I like it is because it's basically spider cooking too. It functions very similarly, while also knocking enemies away further than that does. So here at 18 minutes, there's a giant penguin holding a bomb, and you have to destroy the penguin before the bomb goes off, or somehow negate the damage. The thing is, if you just negate the damage, the penguin will get a new bomb. You still have to beat the penguin. There's no way around it. I don't know how much damage it does. I don't think it's ever hit me. But I assume it's dangerous. It's a really big bomb. It's very foreboding. I mean, it hits the whole screen, as evidenced by the red flashing for the hazard zone. The boss of this stage is quite hard. Particularly in single weapon runs. So a lot of people will play this game with only the character's main weapon, which, depending on the character, makes it extremely freaking hard. Excuse me. Kiryu Coco, in particular, has a really rough time in main weapon only. I've used her a decent amount for those. I survived, I think, 32 minutes with her, with just her main weapon. But I did not actually beat the boss. I couldn't kill it in time. It's just, she doesn't have approach methods. That just happens with some characters that are melee focused, because the boss of this stage is very, very, very dangerous to approach. And you'll see why once it shows up. You can also see that the bullets on the screen are a little bit denser. I'm pretty experienced with games that do that. I've played a decent amount of shmups. So I'm pretty used to understanding and avoiding bullet patterns, but as I mentioned before, they're not so much patterns in this game for the most part as they are vomit. So that only goes so far. It helps with situational awareness, but they're pretty random in how they get thrown at you. They don't behave like bullet patterns in like old arcade shmups, really at all, with a few exceptions. So the boss spawns at 20 minutes, and immediately is, like, generally a priority, I would say. So one, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so sausage is kind of like a discount whammy water in some ways. It's really not good. If you want optimal times, don't do this build. But it does have some knockback effect, which is kind of nice. So I did pick that up as your last weapon. You can't collab. There's just not enough slots. So you're always going to have in a fully maxed build. You're going to have 4 collabs and 1 regular weapon, and then your base weapon. So this boss jumps all over the place, shoots a bunch of bullets, shoots giant beams of bananas. Yeah, see all those bullets? Like, I'm not going to try and maneuver through that. That's rough. Melee characters just get obliterated there if you don't have something designed specifically to deal with that, like some big damage mitigation or like really fast healing or something, which Fauna does, but there's not much point in taking the risk, I feel like. The boss presents plenty of opportunities to damage it. When it's not doing that, assuming your damage is high enough that you can... Well, it also helps that her ultimate makes her invincible. Now, if you don't kill the boss, it doesn't despawn. Every other enemy in the game despawns at 30 minutes, which is the kill screen. The boss will not despawn. The boss will, in fact, continue to accost you for the entire rest of the run until you kill it. So there's the triple banana beam. That's a sign that the boss's health is fairly depleted. I believe she doesn't use that attack until she's low on health. Or at least below half, which, you know, which is something. We take that. So, using your ult to be invincible and just standing on the boss is generally the best way to do that with most characters. As you can see, you take damage very quickly when you're not invulnerable. So I have to panic and dodge out real fast. So now I have everything upgraded, and all of my level ups should be stat increases now. The top 2 will always be stat increases. The bottom 2 will always be a heal of 20% and hollow coins, which we pretty much never take, because by the time we would realistically ever want to take the healing, it's not enough to matter, and we're not coin farming, we don't care about that. So post 20 minutes, the game starts going into what you only see in endless mode, which is what this is. And up until 30 minutes, there are pre-programmed waves of enemies that increase in speed and difficulty and health. They just keep scaling up, and the intent is that they eventually overwhelm you unless you built in a way kind of preemptively to deal with that scaling. Now, this doesn't really happen because I more or less know how to build even within a suboptimal build combination, and it doesn't become an issue. Unlike, say, Vampire Survivors, where when you use the funny 3-headed dragon, you can just AFK for 5 hours and you never die, even though every level up he gets makes the game harder. That's interesting. So that's... I figure at some point, because it's going to be a little bit repetitive for the next, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes, I'd like to talk about what I think is particularly interesting about this game as opposed to some of the other games in this genre. So, in addition to the fact that every character has unique skills and unique weapons, as opposed to just starting with the same one weapon from the same pool that everybody uses, you can also free aim your weapons rather than them just auto-aiming everything. So that little pink cursor is the direction that my weapons are aimed. You control that with the mouse generally. So now Fauna's main weapon actually is just an AoE. It doesn't really aim at all. And some weapons like Spider Cooking don't really aim, but there are a lot of directionally influenced weapons. And being able to free aim them is kind of nice, because you can choose how you want to cut paths through enemies. This game also has, and they're not really going to be shown here, it has some slower paced game modes. It has what's called the Hollow House. So there's like a farm. It's like very Stardew Valley light. It's a nice break from the relative intensity, I guess, of the main game mode. There's also a casino mode for all of the gambling addicts out there. But mainly what it comes down to is that while there are characters that that are, I guess, strictly more optimal than others, when the game had leaderboards, because it currently does not, they are down, they were split by character, which kind of incentivizes you to play as different characters, as well as the fact that it has kind of a higher skill cap than a Vampire Survivors or similar, where a lot of them either outright kill you past a certain point or make survival trivial once you have a build going. This does neither of those things, and I think that's really valuable. I'm sure there are other games in this space that do that I just don't know about, but I think it's kind of cool to have a roguelike game like that, where you can play it both casually or, for lack of a better word, kind of try hard. It's definitely my favorite roguelike. And it's also free, so that's kind of a nice benefit. So right now, I'm just trying to build up attack and speed as much as possible. Speed is usually the top priority, but I am kind of worried about being able to do enough damage to deal with the post-30 enemies, because they're pretty tanky. They don't start that tanky, but they scale up every minute, including all of the existing ones, I believe. They, like, even if they already are alive, I think their health resets. I'm not sure though. I have not data mined this game in any way, so I'm not entirely certain about that. Something I didn't really talk about that is common to this type of game is the eliminate, reroll, and hold feature. So whenever you level up in these games, usually you can banish items from showing up for the rest of the run. You can reroll if you don't like any of the options, because you generally, sometimes you can skip. Oh, it does have Jump King. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they added a Jump King mode. It's called Tower of Suffering in 0.7. What was I saying a second ago? I don't actually remember. I don't know why I'm leveling up the solo stamp there. Probably to sell it. Yeah, that's probably what I was doing there. I don't think that actually matters long term. Yeah, I really don't remember what I was talking about before, but I'm gonna... Oh, okay, yeah, upgrading attack and speed. So the top priority is generally speed, followed by attack, followed by, I guess, health, crit, then pickup range. Pickup range doesn't really matter that much in the late game if you have enough speed. And the goal is like 600-ish%. Oh, right, reroll mechanic, thank you. The goal is generally like 600, 700% speed. Which on the endless stages, which this isn't, or sorry, I should clarify. Endless as in they scroll infinitely in all directions. This one doesn't. Stage 1 scrolls infinitely in all directions, 2 is horizontal, 5 is vertical, the other 2 do not scroll infinitely, they are enclosed. So yeah, the reroll mechanic lets you reroll if you don't like any of the level up options, and then the hold is new to 0.7. What that does is when you have two different things that you want in a level up, you aren't forced to pick between them anymore. You can pin one of them to show up on your next level. And Glitched, if it makes you feel any better, I have put my phone in the fridge before once or twice. It was we've all been crusty levels of tired before. I'm not going to talk about my sleep deprivation adventures right now, though. I don't know that. Maybe that would be interesting. I don't know. I'd have to remember them better. Which, you know, if you're sleep deprived, you kind of don't. There was one time I was at a friend's house for a sleepover when I was like 14. And I was up for like 48 straight hours. And all I could do was I stood on this exercise mat. And I was like transfixed with how it felt on my feet. It was like the strangest thing. I was like, man, this feels so good on my feet, guys. It was like, is this what being high is like? I've never been high before, but I've always wondered. Anyway, so I'm just kind of selling stamps here to get them off the screen. I don't want to be interrupted while I'm trying to dodge things later, and touching them immediately brings up the menu of what you want to do with them. If I need to pause, I can. It's just escape. I just press escape and it pauses. So, no real reason to to leave them around. They do give you holo coins for selling them. I don't really care about that. I have every upgrade in the game already, and like 2 million or something spare holo coin in case I ever needed them for something. So that's not a big deal. But we're coming up on the kill screen. I've only got 2.5 more minutes to prepare. So you can still level up afterwards. It's just harder because the enemies are way more threatening. I think actually the 20 to 30 range is probably harder on stage 3 hard off the top of my head than stage 4 hard because there's more enemies to shoot at you. Same with stage 1 hard. The bullets are not so dense here, it's just the enemies have a little bit higher stats. That said, I do think the main stage of 4 hard is the hardest of the existing stages. Let's see, what can we talk about next? So, you can see that I have like twice the health I started with now. Part of that is Jingisu Khan. I started with, I think, 171, and I have like 350 now. It's kind of funny how strong the enemies get, and you'll see that health bar disappear pretty fast later. And then heal back, and then disappear, and then heal back, and then disappear. It becomes very Rocket Tag, but mostly for you, not really for so much for the enemies. It's like Hell or Hell mode, or Hell and Hell mode in Devil May Cry 4, if you're familiar with that, where the enemies still get health bars, but you die in one hit from everything. It's kind of like that. This game actually has a hardcore mode, which thankfully there's no reason to use right now because the leaderboards are down. I don't like hardcore mode. I think it's bad for the game. And I'm glad it currently is pointless, because what it does is it sets your health to 1 and then gives you a score bonus for every minute past 30. The problem with this is setting your health to 1 just negates certain characters' kits and certain items entirely. Now, the second of these is somewhat alleviated by the fact that you can customize what items show up now. But the first one is still stupid, because it's like, well, what is Fauna supposed to do in a 1 hit point setting? Her whole mechanic is based around recovering health. Some characters are hit by this even harder. I can't think of her name. Yuzuki Choko? She specifically wants to lose and regain health. How are you supposed to play her when you only have 1 hit point? It's just really silly that that's how hardcore works. It would be one thing if it was just a dramatically increased enemy damage or something. It would make that sort of style riskier, but it would still function. But unfortunately, yeah, hardcore as it currently exists, I'm kind of thankful there's no reason to use, because the game is a lot more fun when I don't have to pigeonhole myself into certain characters, because most of them just don't work if you don't play on hardcore. The downside of that is that the only existing leaderboard is currently the SRC one, which has, well, I don't want to get into that. But yeah, I'm really hoping that if they do institute hardcore again in 0.8, along with the dungeon mode that they're going to be introducing, kind of like a roguelike dungeon crawler, that they incorporate it in a way that utilizes the unique capacity of each character a little bit more. And we are about to hit 30 minutes, which is when things start getting kind of sus. If they don't... It kind of looks sus right now, it's not actually that sus. 30 minutes, it starts getting pretty sus. So at 30 minutes, you only fight Yago heads for the entire rest of the game. And these are by far the most dangerous enemies in the game. They are not that fast yet. They get a lot faster, I promise. And so far we can fend them off. We don't really have to run away from them constantly. That doesn't happen until a couple more minutes in. But they're pretty dangerous. They hit us pretty hard for decent chunks of damage. One thing Fauna has, her third skill, which I didn't talk about before because it wasn't very pertinent. Fauna has a skill called Whisper, which, if you see that little yellow circle around her, that's pretty much only covering her, that's a shield. And how that works is it just negates damage and consumes when it gets hit, but she gets 5 of them. And this is why I used to use her on hardcore mode, because she could skip an item called the body pillow. which is, well, it's a shield item. But that one is just, I think, 35 health worth of shield, or 30 health worth of shield, whereas this is, it doesn't care how much damage it is, it just negates it. I think it's strictly better, but otherwise, her kit isn't technically the best for, like, optimal times. I think the best characters in the game are probably, like, Oro Crony. I think Peko is really good, Pekora. Shoot. I'm like drawing blanks right now on character names. This is so sad. Can we hit 50 likes? Hakos Bales is really good. I don't know if she's like top tier, but she's quite good. Nana Shimume is really good. Off the top of my head, that's who's like really, really great. But this shield is really, really helpful later on, insofar as we're allowed to gain stacks of it. The problem is, once you lose it, once enemies are fast enough, it's kind of hard to get back, because it has a cooldown on coming back. If you look in the bottom left corner right now, I only have 4 of them, because I got hooked by something. And you have to go, I think it's 10 or 15 seconds without damage to get another stack. Yeah, it's 10 seconds. Each stack you have gives you 2% of your health back every 2 seconds. So if you have all 5, it's 10% health every 2 seconds, which is pretty good. And since that triggers the roots coming out of the ground, that also helps her DPS, especially early game when you don't have like a disgusting array of weapons. The lack of Wemi water isn't really felt until, I would say, probably like 36, 37 minutes. Because it's at that point where things start swarming you from the front, even when you're running away. Eventually, we pretty much just have to run in circles to avoid things. And you might notice that there's still about 4 or 15 minutes left in my estimate. This stage, I believe, has a memory leak on it that causes it to run very, very slowly later on. Now, technically, there is an unfortunate abuse case with potato PCs where you can just make the game run extremely slow and give yourself a lot of time to react. This is unfortunate. There's no way to enforce any kind of ban on this, obviously, because you can't tell people that they just have to buy better hardware. So, oh well, I guess. It's just that the game is a little bit poorly optimized, unfortunately. And with certain weapons, namely the Mikorone that is used in the optimal survival time build, it's calculating burn damage every tick of gameplay, which is generally like every frame, so that slows the game down even more. Right now, it's running at a pretty appreciable frame rate, but it does get slower later as the enemies get more aggressive, faster, and start shooting at me. But they don't shoot for a little bit. But you probably have noticed that the enemies are crowding me a little bit more than they were at 30 minutes. That's because they're faster, have more health, they get closer to me before they die. And this becomes increasingly an issue until we can't sit in one spot anymore, we have to start running away. Which kind of groups them up in a different way. Now, circling is pretty much the optimal strat. But, it's not really necessary, so I just don't bother. I'm not like, I didn't like super try hard this run. But yeah, as you can see, they're kind of getting overwhelming now. I'm having to dodge out of them, out of being surrounded by them. And also, we still have to deal with lightning strikes, even once all the enemies have been replaced with Yagowos. So that's not the best either. On the upside, they do drop yellow EXP crystals, which are the 3rd tier of EXP crystal, which is, I guess, kind of nice. It makes it possible, but still reasonably gain levels. I didn't actually see what my movement speed percent was there. I assume it's pretty high. I'll address that next time I see a level up. But at this stage, it's mostly running in circles and ulting in a big crowd of them since it makes me invincible. And hoping that it gives me a stack of Whisper back. Of course, if I don't get out by the time it's over, I will lose any stack of Whisper that I gain in the process, which is kind of unfortunate. As long as I have 1 stack of Whisper, I can't actually take health damage, which means I can't die. So I do want to maintain those as long as I can, especially because they. The problem with the healing component is that it only applies retroactively. So if you take damage and you need the healing from Whisper, it's going to be almost a minute before it's really beneficial. Because you have to gain back all your stacks before it starts mattering a lot, because it's 2% per stack. Kind of unfortunate. Well, I said I would address my speed percentage next level up, and then I forgot because I was talking about something else. I feel like 392 health is kind of low for this point. Let's see. About to gain another level. 514. Yeah, that's not ideal. But I didn't start gaining stat level ups until a little bit late in this run. Normally I would want to have those at like 8 minutes. And I didn't have, I don't know where I was going with that sentence. So haste is kind of a weird stat in this game because weapons have a haste cap. Every weapon has a slightly different haste cap where it can't shoot any faster than it's already shooting. It does not matter what, how high you get your haste stat. Like you could have 500% and it'll not shoot any faster than 200% in some cases. So I'm cautious about building that too high. Some characters have like giant innate haste bonuses, so you just want, you don't really need to do that much with it. There's characters who, like Hako's Bales, where you want to boost crit over attack since she can get 100% crit rate, and then all of her attacks just do quadruple damage, which is ridiculous. I need to run this again with her, because I probably could get like mid-40s. Pretty easily, at least by comparison. Characters like Suisse also kind of doesn't want to. Well, that's actually complicated. I'd have to think about that. But anyway, yeah, we basically just try and kite them in circles now, as much as possible, keeping them tightly clustered so that they're all taking damage from the Jingisukan, which is, it follows where I walk, more or less. The main danger is getting caught on environment objects. Like, these poles have collision. Those barrels have collision, and most egregiously, those fences at the exact top and bottom, those, like, slats, the vertical lines there near the checker tiles, those have collision. And they jut out just slightly further than the top and bottom of the room. So you can't actually run flush with the wall, or you'll get caught on them. And that is, in my opinion, extremely obnoxious. And it causes many a close call and, in many runs, deaths, because I forget this a lot. But you can see me moving just slightly south of them there to avoid that problem, because it doesn't, you can't dodge through collidable objects with the dodge. You can only dodge through enemies because they don't have collision, they just have like damage boxes or hit boxes. We've got Jingisukan up to plus 26, which is pretty good. Ideally we would have it a bit higher than that, but surely you can see how hard these things hit now. I lost like half my health bar from getting touched. It gets pretty insane, and I have almost 400 health. So if I had base health still, they would just one-shot me. It's really hard to maintain Whisper because they're really fast and they're hard to maneuver around because you have to react to them. Now, even with my PC, which is pretty beefy, it doesn't care about GPU, but I have like a 10900K or something. I still get slowdown, and I assume that's because of the memory leak. But even, like, it does help to react to their spawning somewhat, because you kind of have to do it on reaction. But yeah, it's just getting increasingly ridiculous. And this is kind of how the end game, post game, whatever, Holocure works. The enemies just scale forever until you can't deal with them And I don't think there's an end to this. I don't think anyone's survived an hour yet on current patch. It's been done on old patch, but new patch is a little bit harder, and you'll see why shortly. Not immediately. I guess it's a couple more minutes. But what else is there to talk about? There's not too much time left in the run. So those little rainbow triangles, those are magnets, I guess. Most games of this type have a similar mechanic. You pick up a magnet. I don't actually know how to spawn them. I assume it's based on killing a certain number of enemies on the same frame is what it feels like, but I don't know if that's actually true. I know every enemy has a set % chance to drop them, but not 100% certain on that. Every character in this game has at least 2 different costumes you can use. Those are completely cosmetic. They don't change stats or builds or skills or anything, which makes sense. I kind of think it would be cool if they did, but there's already so much variety. It's like, like 3 people work on this game or something. It's mostly one dude, actually. So it feels like it'd be kind of hard to ask for much more, especially because, again, it's free. The guy who does most of the work on this game, KU, is actually a keyframe animator professionally. He worked on 1,000 Year Blood War, I think. He did key animation for it, which is why this patch took so long to come out, is my understanding. Amidst other various projects, because I know he does commission and freelance work for like certain VTuber things as well, aside from this. But he's also done the sprite work for, I think, River City Girls he did, which, now that I think about it, is pretty evident looking at the character animations. He might have also done it for one of the Shantae games. He's worked for Way Forward before, I think, which is pretty cool. He's a pretty good pixel artist. Let's see. We only have a little bit more time to fill. What do I want to talk about? I got 1 minute before I have more things to talk about, and realistically it's more than a minute because, oh wow, yeah, okay, look at that slowdown. That's getting kind of silly. Now, it's debatable whether slowdown to that degree, or slowdown to some extent, is intended, because it happens regardless. It may be that the dev is like, hey, this is kind of like how shmups work, like always in arcades. It's like hardware slowdown. The thing about that is people have different hardware, so I don't know if there's some like back-end coded thing where if there's enough entities on the screen it slows down automatically. I'm not an expert. I would be curious to find out. I think the game is made in GameMaker, so I'm not sure it affords the freedom to do that. But yeah, like the IGT is affected by the slowdown. Everything is, because it's all like just internal game speed. So it is unfortunately a bit abusable. I'm not really abusing it. It just kind of so happens that I get some, regardless of my PC's power. I don't know if there's some like crazy overclock 9950X build that would be fine. Probably not, because threads probably don't matter. Probably doesn't scale past 8 cores, because most games don't, unless they're like Cyberpunk or something. So I'm not totally sure if there's some like fancy way around this. But if it is in fact a memory leak, it is actually just a problem with the game that hopefully will get fixed. Because it would be nice if when the leaderboards go back up, all the best runs are... Well, actually, all the best runs on the leaderboard, for the most part, are probably going to be cheated, because this game's unfortunately really easy to tamper with the files of. Which is kind of why the leaderboards are down, is my understanding. Anyway, we're at 40 minutes, so you may have noticed that the Yagowos are angry now. And they're faster, and they get way more health, and most threateningly, they have bigger hitboxes. And that makes it much harder to zip between groups of them. Oh, also they shoot at me, like, a lot, as you can see. And we get, like, 5 FPS performance when they're shooting at me. And that is a single hit from a single Yagoo that did, about... Yeah, see, there you go. I die in 3 hits now. From bullets, whatever, doesn't matter. And even circling them with this build, it's actually just not enough. This is kind of where not having whammy water screws me over, and to some extent Mikorone. Because how do you dodge that? You know, that's just not really feasible. You need to either iframe through it, or have way more speed than I do, or be able to push them out of your way, or something. Once you get to a certain point, you just run into fundamental limitations of your build, unfortunately, if you didn't build a certain way, which I did not. So, yeah, I pretty much just eat multiple deaths here. This used to happen at 50 minutes, which I had never really reached, so I didn't actually know about it. But now it's at 40, so scores on the earlier stages are a bit harder to beat now. This stage came out in 0.7, so it doesn't really affect this stage. It's always been as hard as this. But I'm going to have a heck of a time trying to beat 45 minutes on stage 1 now. Once, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Yeah, this game gets pretty ridiculous. Like, the bullet waves are just absurd. I assume there's some timing to them. It's hard to practice this part of the game, just by virtue of the fact that it takes 40 minutes to get here, and this being like a PC game, it's not like an emulator. I can't really save state to practice it. And I'm dead. The timer keeps counting for a couple seconds after you die, but yeah, 41:13, that is my PB on this stage. And as you can see, I can't submit my high score, so very sad.
What a Giga Chat, bro. That was
but yeah,
crazy.
that is Holocure Stage 4 Hard, 41 minutes.
Bro, the end of that was so absurd.
This game is cool. If you like roguelikes, you should play it. I freaking love this game. I've got like 100-something hours in it. I strongly recommend it. I gave my shout-outs yesterday, but I guess I can do that again?
Yeah, go for it. Sorry, I was yapping, but I completely forgot I also had to unmute in Discord, so I talked over you just a smidge while you were saying that. But yeah, go for your shout-outs, man. Anything
Sure.
you want to say, go for it.
Yeah, so shout-outs once again to Nylan for introducing me to this game as well. That happens a lot. Shout-outs again to Glitched and the Glitched Gamers for making this happen and being part of this event.
Poggers.
Shout outs to the devs for this game who made a freaking awesome free game. I guess that's it. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody.